a year every year. So over the 5 years, the margin to your business is $2,500 for online backup. And at the same time, you've just delivered a cost saving to your client where you've saved him 50% of the cost on the 5-year view, and you've saved him 70% of the cost on the 1-year view. So the online backup deployment is far more attractive for your customers and far more attractive for you. Everyone benefits, both the end users and everybody in the technology supply chain.
Roger Hunt.
So Roger Hunt asks, how does SOS handle multiple sites within a small business environment? Roger, many ways it can be set up and deployed. It's a very common deployment requirement. In fact, multiple sites and branch offices is one of the great strengths of online backup. But the most typical ways are to set up different accounts for different locations, or to even just to have one location working across all sites. The benefit of online backup, as we'll talk about in a couple of slides' time, is that every single device is under the backup cloud. So you no longer have to worry about, is this device on the right domain or on the right network or subnet. There's no longer any thought given to where this device locates, because every single device is located under the online backup cloud. And that's your online backup cloud, I might add. And then Daniel and Chris will get to those questions at the end. Okay, so just a summary of differences between online backup and tape backup. Deployment for online backup, no IT staff required, very simple, compared to tape backup, which can be extremely time intensive. And yeah, often deployment of tape backup and centralized backup solutions can be quite painful. In terms of coverage, and this actually talks to Roger's question, with tape backup, the only things that can really be handled are tethered devices within one site. So a server is going to be covered, and perhaps the workstations are, but laptops are nearly never covered by tape-based backup solutions or centrally architected like disk-based backup solutions too. Branch offices nearly always excluded or outside of the centralized data protection regime. Whereas with online backup, every single device is under the backup cloud. With tape backup, the media has got to be carried off-site every day, and it's a manual process. With online backup, the data is inherently protected off-site. With tape backup, recovery is very slow and difficult and expensive. It can often take a couple of days to rebuild an environment from a tape-based backup, whereas with online backup, you've got instant access to your data. In fact, you can delegate recovery to individual users so that the actual end users of the workstations or laptops can get their data themselves. They don't even need to call their IT department, let alone escalate to you. From a security standpoint, tape is just, the news is filled with anecdotes of security breaches and failures associated with tape backup. Online backup's inherently far more secure. Data is encrypted with military-grade encryption and private key encryption, so that you've got far more stringent access control to data. With tape backup, access to data is very limited. Really, only central IT has access to the backups, whereas with online backup, you actually get this whole new world of functionality around global roaming access. So anybody, so long as you set it up with the appropriate permissions, users can access their data from anywhere, including from an iPhone if they want to. Tape backup is very expensive, as we saw on the previous slide with the cost example, compared to online backup. And then, most importantly for everybody in the audience today, from a margin and revenue standpoint, with tape backup, you get low single-digit margins, and it's once off. It's expensive to run support and is a major time suck for your business. With online backup, you don't have the time suck. Recovery is simple and easy. Deployment is simple and easy. Management is simple and easy. The margin's extremely rich. 50, 60, 70% margins are very, very common. And it's a recurring revenue stream that continues to pay you month over month, year over year. So that really nets that last point on the slide, which is what we're all about. We want to take backup from being an annoying and ugly and time-consuming and costly part of your business into being a rich center of both sales and profit for your business. Got a couple of questions here, one from Mark Jones. The time-intensive argument works well if you are the one having to pay for the time. When we deploy a solution, many of our customers have us provide the offline tape rotation service for a monthly fee. The margin for switching them to online needs to absorb the loss. Yes, Mark, and it almost certainly will, because if you also factor in the costs associated with doing, say, tape backup recoveries, which can be extremely time-intensive, when you look at the overall time commitment you've got to make to online backup, it's negligible. It's nearly nothing. Whereas with tape backup, it's still quite expensive. And the margin on online backup is just extraordinarily rich. I mean, we were talking about a customer, a partner of ours earlier today, who's making a 90% margin. He's marking up his price from us just dramatically. And we're actually going to look at a couple of margin and revenue examples in a few slides' time. You'll see that. But the margin is extraordinarily rich, and you'd have no problem absorbing the cost you'd lose from subbing out that tape rotation service. But here's the other thing I'll say to you. You can't defend your existing business model. As nice as it might be today, your customers are going to move to online backup, and either you're going to sell it to them or somebody else is going to sell it to them. It's very unlikely you're going to be able to convince them to stick with tape-based backup over the next 3 to 5 years. It's just a question of time. And then Zev Berman asks, how does your service compare to Mozy Pro? Zev, I'll answer that in more detail at the Q&A at the end, but also, yeah, let's handle it like that. Okay, moving on. So let's just looking briefly at the market opportunity before we turn to technology. One of the most common questions we get is it too late to enter this market? Have I missed the opportunity? How big really is the opportunity that's still out there? And the answer is very positive. If we look at the overall backup and DR industry, there's about a $10 billion spend annually, of which currently only $1 billion is being spent on online backup. But when you look at all of the data about the industry, online backup is poised to take about a 70 or 80% market share. So even if you took a negative view and said that we're only going to get 50% market share, that's still $5 billion. So there's a long way to go. So it's in its early stages with now mass adoption starting to happen. We've seen gradual ramp up, but then in the last 18 months, explosive adoption of online backup in the SMB space and in the enterprise and consumer space as well, just a little slower than in the SMB space. And depending on who you listen to, online backup's poised to take up to 90% market share, but certainly it is decimating the tape and disk-based backup markets. And what's driving that growth? Generally a trend toward cloud computing and SaaS as just a simpler and better way to deliver applications, the cost savings and superior performance associated with online backup, the proliferation of distributed data, so more and more data is now sitting outside the data center. IBM estimates that 60% of corporate data actually sits on leaf nodes like laptops and are outside of the centralized backup regime. And then also just the proliferation of data. So in the last 5 years, we've seen a 10 times growth in the amount of digital content sitting on devices, and that trend doesn't look to be diminishing anytime soon. And then just the final collapse is a very strong word, but the very significant decline of the tape backup market, which we saw a few slides ago with that reduction from nearly $3 billion to only about $1 billion in just a 24-month time span. All right, so we'll turn now to look at the SOS technology, and this is where questions about how we compare to other vendors usually come up. So we'll try and answer your question here, Zev, and any other questions that come up. Fundamentally, our product is about more than just backing up data, and that's I think one of our greatest strengths compared to the other platforms on the market. Since our inception, we've always talked about online backup as being about 3 different things: about protecting your data, about allowing you to access your data, and allowing you to share your data so that you can work with it in new ways. So we've got a very strong backup system with both a local backup software application and online backup software application, but that's only part of the puzzle. We then provide extensive and very powerful access capabilities so that you can, on a BlackBerry device, search all of your data in the cloud and get instant access to it. Using an iPhone, you can consume that content immediately. And also sharing ability, whether that's sharing with business colleagues via email or other business applications, or whether that's sharing photos with friends via Facebook. Depends if your customers are home users or business users. But these are often overlooked components of an online backup solution and are extremely powerful and actually very strong sales points for the solution. So when you explain to your customers that not only is this better backup than, say, tape or disk, and it's a 1/6 of the price, but by the way, it will also give you instant access to all of your files from your iPhone within 10 seconds. That then becomes a very powerful sales pitch. We're not just talking about protecting your data. We're talking about fundamentally changing the way you interact with and access your data in real time, which is pretty powerful stuff. In terms of some specific features of the software, I'll just call out a few. So the software, generally, we try and build as much technology into the product as possible rather than bill you for add-ons. So built into the software is a full continuous data protection module where we can watch files and continuously back them up to the cloud and instantly upon them changing. We support unlimited devices per account. So you can see here in the screenshot on the top right, one account there's got 6 different PCs being centrally managed, which provides then for central recovery and reporting and management on all of those PCs. Global roaming access through a web browser. You access any of your data anytime through a browser. An iPhone application and now a native BlackBerry client as well that lets you instantly access and stream and share and manipulate your content on those smartphones. A fully integrated local backup system. So we don't say to partners or customers to stop using local backup. In fact, the opposite of that. We strongly recommend that our partners and their customers continue to use local backup, and to that end we provide a fully integrated local backup solution so that you can have a full on-site backup of data as well as an off-site backup of data. Question here from Daniel Brown. Will you get into details about your client software, if any, that runs on the end-user systems? Yes, Daniel, that's actually what we're talking about right now. So everything I'm discussing right now is the client software, and in fact all of these screenshots are screenshots from the client software that runs. And you can also get a demo. That's a great point, Lynn. So if you call in to talk to one of your partner specialists, one of the first things they're going to do is to show you the software and give you a product demonstration. And then I'll address some of these technical questions at the end, if that's okay. We've got some questions here from Donnie Owen and Daniel Brown. So just hitting on some additional points. Our security is second to none, so we use military-grade encryption, including a private key system, which means that if set up with the appropriate security, then not even SOS personnel can see the data in question. It's very important, and many online backup companies out there don't have this, which fundamentally breaks the security and trust model of an online backup system. What this then means is that we're Sarbanes-Oxley and HIPAA compliant and pretty much comply with any of the regulatory requirements out there associated with protecting and backing up business data. Moving across to our recovery system, it's an extremely powerful recovery system which is calendar-based, so it lets you roll back to any point in time to see which snapshot of the data set you'd like to see. Unlimited versioning in the bottom middle here. So the system actually keeps an unlimited version history of every single file. We've got some customers with 7 years worth of versions being stored in our cloud, which is an extremely powerful sales tool, the ability for small businesses to use this nearly as a pseudo-document management system because every version of their files is available to them. And then unlimited archiving. This is very important as well from a sales perspective because you can position this system as both a DR solution but as also an archiving solution where we don't remove anything from the cloud unless you explicitly remove it, whereas with all the other platforms out there, if the customer deletes a file from their local PC, then that will delete the file from the cloud. Okay. So moving on. All right, so in the interest of time, we'll move on and talk about the SOS partner model and some of these questions that have been asked here about the detailed technology we'll get to in the Q&A at the end. I hope that's okay. Okay, so we've seen this slide before, but just reminding you, the goal here is to take all the technology I just described, then run that through your business, put your logo and your marketing on top of that, develop a bunch of custom product offerings that match your businesses or your service streams that you're already offering to your customers, with the goal of helping you drive incremental, high-margin, recurring revenue. How do we do that? Well, with a variety of things. Our partner program is quite rich with all of these constituent elements around this circle diagram on the right-hand side here, covering infrastructure. We provide all the cloud infrastructure to you, product and